I'm not aware of a specific waiting list for some other communities. I'm aware of there being more of a demand for the licenses than are there, and them trying to go through a competitive process to figure it out. I've not seen one that, like Europe, the only quote waiting list, and it's not really a waiting list, is the state does provide a pre-qualification, you know, thing. If you can find a spot, you can let the community know you're already pre-qualified with the state to do that. As far as a waiting list on ones that are there, I'm honestly not specifically aware of it, but what I would say is it would be just like any other. I mean, once the licenses are gone, the licenses are gone. We're closed up for shop. You know.
Right, but if somebody then says, you know, I'm done, I'm going out of business, I want to transfer, should the city reopen, you know, a window of time for people to apply, or should we just allow them to transfer it to the person of their choice?
You know, the transfer would be, yeah, the transfer.
Yeah, that was a point about a waiting list, but if I want to give my license to Butch, but there was 7 other people that came in 4th through 10th, why does he get to jump those people? But I think what I've seen is most people are saying there isn't a waiting list because you don't know if the 4th guy maybe got one in a different community and he doesn't want yours in Taylor anymore. So it seems like there's a can of worms either way, but it's something that I think we need to be prepared for because it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. And I don't know if it's one of the many lawsuits that are out there, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, so the intent and the way it's set up here is that there would not be like an open up bid process. It would be a transfer that comes back through the process. Are we going to approve this transfer or not? And maybe they do skip ahead, and maybe it's part of a business deal that we don't ever really know the specific terms of. For example, the price. Right?
I'm just curious what other communities are doing about it because I'm sure it's happening.
My only issue has been with transfers where it's, you know, it does create a secondary market for the stuff. So once you, you know, one of the things that we put in here, yeah, well, that's actually what I was going to talk about. So one of the things that we put in here and that I've done for other communities is putting in that, you know, if you're granted a license, that you have to be open for business within 6 months. And that's the reason why that's put in there is to make sure that you're a serious applicant and you're serious about doing this as much as we can. And you didn't just come in here with a song and dance.
Right.
To acquire this.
And I think that's good. I think that's smart. You're not just getting the license and then hopefully selling the black
and
market.
then marketing it, right.
But I'm saying maybe 2 years later, for whatever reason, you're retiring, you're moving out. I still think that there could be a demand for your license. And should the city allow that individual to transfer it, or should you open up a new window and, again, bring in as many applications as you can to determine who's the best fit for the city? I don't have an answer on that. I just was curious.
Right now, the way it's set up, it would be like you and I talking, you deciding to sell it to me, but the scrutiny being, it's not up for bid, the scrutiny being by the city and the city council, if ultimately you guys decide to be the final arbiter of this, to review the deal, review who's coming in and taking over your license, making sure they're all doing either approving it or not approving it. So it would not be back out for bid. It wouldn't be like, you know, a new license becomes available and now let's throw it out there.
Mr. Chairman, one more point, just to I think to part of your question, Councilman Becerra, in terms of the process, how we envision this happening is we would allow like a 60-day application process to occur to try to cut off these, and I don't know if it's other communities that have done this and created this expectation, but there are some that believe that if they're the first in line, somehow that gives them some greater priority. We don't want them camping out in front of City Hall. We don't want them fighting to get in here. Yeah, right. And so we envision a 60-day period of application acceptance. Assuming somebody does not check one of the pre-qualification criterias, their application won't even be reviewed and processed. But everybody that does, they would essentially go through the process of review and consideration. So at that point in time, the scoring system would be implemented, and they would be reviewed accordingly. So I don't know if that helps.
It does. I mean, I'm talking about a hypothetical. It just seems like it's obviously going to happen. And when I sat through that,
legally, if we could say no transfers, I would prefer it.
Yeah,
I don't know that we can legally say that though.
Yeah, I think that's tough when someone owns a business to say you can't.
You're creating
Yeah.
property interest, which becomes a problem
Yeah.
that can be taken away. I mean,
My vision of that, I hear what you're saying, but we're gonna create this system, scoring, application process, using the number, 3 licenses, 10 people. We're gonna eventually get to the point, I like in our scoring system, you've got tiebreakers, and then if everyone's tied to where there are no more tiebreakers, you have a lottery. Right now, it's just who's ever ping pong ball gets pulled. That's good, but you had to jump through all these hoops. You had to be in the top 3 out of 10, and then 2 years later, you can give your license to whoever you want. It sort of defeats the purpose of what our policy is all about. I don't have a solution to that, but it's just standing out to me that, you know, you can beat the system after the first year of being in business, I guess, if somebody wants to sell you their license.
if you want to consider it that, you know, I mean, there, like I indicated before, there's always a way, you know, I mean, to go, just as we're kind of talking this out, because I think it's a good discussion, you know, you also, if you allow transfers, or at least open transfers, you prevent running the risk of the situation where you've got a valuable business, it's making money, you want to retire, you want to move on, or you want to step away from the business. Then we're dealing with a situation where, you know, it's not Councilman Brazzura, it's not Dan Brazzura's business anymore. Greco, who we don't even know is really running the business. You know what I mean? Because you ain't just going to let it go. Yeah, you know, right? I mean, you're not just going to say, oh, you know what, I'm going to play by the rules. I'm not going to, you know, I've got this thing. I'm just going to go to Florida. I'm done. You know, you're going to figure out a way to still be on the LLC. But nobody's
Right.
seen
Yeah.
Brazzura in a little while. Yeah, you know what I mean? And who's Dave? And you guys didn't come back to us. And then we go into the whole thing of what we're doing. So it does make it a little, again, it's a concern. The secondary market is a concern. There's no doubt about it. But I think making them come back in, it makes us at least be comfortable as much as we can with, this is what we got, this is who it is. Dave Greco, you know, has run a couple of businesses here. We know, you know, who it is, you know, things like that. So,
Dave, just hypothetically, and I agree, I think it's a good conversation, good dialogue. What would be the scenario if they came back for a transfer and city council simply voted no?
as long as you have justifiable reasons, I mean, it's not a constitutional right, so it'd probably be a rational basis to say this person doesn't have the experience, this person doesn't have this, and at that point in time, if you are, you know, owner, you know, Mr. Smith or whatever, your option is to get out, move on, forfeit, not pay the annual fee, you know.
Assuming that happens and they simply vacate their license, would the process for that one vacant license then go back to what Councilman Brazzura's,
Yeah, we have a license available. Now, I don't know specifically if we would have to specifically advertise it, because this isn't like going out for a bid. This is not, you know, I mean, this is not, you know, trying to get the lowest bid on a contract over a certain amount of dollars. You know, so I don't know if the license becomes available, if it just kind of sits there until somebody applies, or we let people know, you know, we're open for business, you know, on a particular one. So, you know, if, you know, as long as there's a rational basis, because this is not a constitutional right, Mayor, I think if we said, look, we're uncomfortable here, here's our rational basis for denying this transfer.
Like if we used a scoring rubric, I mean, that you're gonna use for the licenses right now, and assuming a transfer, yeah, I mean, if they don't, I don't wanna say score high enough, but kind of